Hey y'all, it's Joe here, and here I am to go over my list of my top 10 favorite Pokemon. Now, I love this series to death, so it was really hard for me to pick just 10, and quite a few of my other favorites were cut out of the video, but I feel like the most important ones to me will be shown here today. Additionally, there will be no starters for a personal reason that I'll go over later, and sorry if I butcher any of the names. This is just how I kind of grown up calling these guys. Finally, if you like the format I'm trying or want to see any more Pokemon lists in general, then make sure to leave a like and tell me by leaving a comment. With all that said, let's get this started. Number 10. As for Scraggy, he will be the only pre-evolution on this list, and there is a reason for that, mainly being that I actually kept this guy not evolved all the time through my playthrough of Pokemon Black and nobody else on this list. I know normally everybody evolves every single Pokemon, but I really couldn't get myself to do this to Scraggy. I just love the first design so much, and I had been spoiled of the later design, just decided I like this one a lot better. He's the type of guy that walks into your house, sits down, and has no idea why he broke into your house. I mean, that face, it's just so great. I love it. Also, it's pretty awesome how he does hide in his own skin, and I'd say that when you add all these up, you got yourself a keeper. Of course, I had to slap on an Eviolite to make him any good in the actual game, and spend some time giving it actually good moves to make it somewhat usable, but that was a small price to pay to enjoy this face on my team. Number 9. Ranunculus was one of those guys that I started to love only because of using him in competitive matches. Beforehand, I had seen him in a few battles within the game, and of course one with the Elite Four, but really, I thought it looked plain stupid. I mean, who wants a giant cell for a Pokemon? Well, it turns out, I guess I kinda do. Sure, his design is pretty weird and awkward, but that really isn't the reason why to love him. The strategies behind him are the real shebang. And now that I've got this all hyped up, what are those strategies? Well, they mainly include of Calm Mind, Recover, and Psychic over and over and over again, along with some of that leftover food to heal them up. These three moves together, along with the leftovers, quickly became my best wall/sweeper at the same time in a huge amount of matches versus other trainers online. I feel like the best part of this is how most people don't really expect such a blob to be any good. I mean, after other slow psychic types like Exeggutor and Hypno came around, most people just kinda gave up with slow psychic types, but I found to hold on to Ranunculus. It's never really let me down in battle, and the pure strength bolstering from this thing always gave me a head up against an unsuspecting victim online. Number 8. So Luxray is kind of the exact opposite for Ranunculus, and that is why he's placed immediately after him. Luxray for me as a kid was love at first sight. I loved the cute Sphinx, and Luxio was pretty cool, and finally when I hit Luxray, the sight was once to be seen all around the globe. This thing was just so awesome to me at the time, and it did quite a bit of work through my playthrough of Pokemon Platinum. I'd seen him before in a Let's Play that I watched before playing the game, and I just knew at the start that I really wanted this awesome guy on my team. In general, he was just so cool, useful in the story, and there really was no reason to dislike this guy. That is, until I got into the competitive battle scene. This Pokemon was one that was really a letdown after I got into that scene. Luxray is one of those guys that seems like it would be good at first, and it tricked me for a while. I mean, it has high attack, and okay everything else, except for speed, and that's where its huge downfall comes from. It had the stats of a sweeper, but the speed of a tank. This means that most other sweepers like Garchomp would just demolish this guy, and in the end, its viability kinda went down the drain. He still is a great pick for the story mode when you have tons of overleveled Pokemon with stupid high speed, and he still is awesome, but maybe you shouldn't pick this guy up for any competitive matches nearby. Number 7. So with Deoxys, it was always one of the Pokemon I wanted as a kid, but I could never have. I'd seen it in magazine, I'd heard of the mystery event to get it, but it was just so rare and no one nearby had a cheat device to pick this thing up for me. There was just something always so intriguing from Deoxys and really made me want it. It may have been the awesome design, the different forms, or just how OP it kinda seemed at the time. It was always mysterious to me as a kid, and then one day in Black and White I finally got one from trading my other legendaries for it, and it smashed straight into my team. The name, Mystery, as it was what Deoxys was to me at the time, a mystery, and I was determined to solve this mystery after all the waiting. Eventually though, it turned out not quite as awesome as I thought. The backstory to this thing was pretty slim and there really wasn't much to be learned, but still, it was a pretty cool thing to have on my team. Of course, I also used this thing competitively, but later on in the Pokemon Black and White life cycle, the hacking got pretty bad and I started to see my hidden gem become one rock in a million. Even though that was the case though, I always felt wonder from sending this thing out from above. Number 6. Primeape is very different from most on this list because unlike the rest, I hated this thing for the longest time until recently. I thought it looked dumb, thought Machamp was better, and that the monkey wasn't worth my time, and additionally I hated it from the anime when I was younger, so yeah, I didn't really have the best impression of it. But recently, during a speedrun of Leaf Green, I found that I was quite wrong, and in the end, Primeape is actually pretty great. This guy has high speed and attack, which makes it an amazing Pokemon for soloing a game, and he can learn a great variety of sweeping moves like Mega Punch, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Break Break. It evolves pretty early on, and in the end adds a great amount of power to any team you could add him to. I would love to see a future Mega Evolution for Primeape to make it even more usable and competitive, but as far as in-game, this ape is prime. Number 5. Ever since the remakes of Silver and Gold, Ampharos has been one of my favorites. I played those games a ton when they came out again, and for one reason or another I picked up this Electros thing and I really fell in love with it. So to begin with the design, it's pretty cool. I mean, it starts out as a regular sheep, goes into a pink sheep, and finally becomes a sheared sheep, which really doesn't sound way too cool when you think about it, but just look at this design and tell me it's not awesome. Of course, with the looks mentioned, I also need to go over that Mega Evolution. This glorious thing hit me by surprise through my playthrough of Y, and made me question all that was Pokemon. I mean, it gave Ampharos 18th century hair with magical lightning pearls of red on it, and let's just say I wasn't really ready for that. But over time I came to love that design. It's quite silly, but also epic at the same time. I find it quite hilarious also how it becomes a dragon somehow through all of this, but I feel like it somehow fits. It's also great that the Mega gives Ampharos a huge stat boost, even though it isn't the most playable Pokemon to begin with. At least it's something, I guess. Number 4. Zapdos is, in my eyes, a legendary bird that is often in the light of the public, being a first-gen legendary bird and all, but at the same time somewhat ignored. In general, the 3 legendary birds aren't way too special anymore. I mean, there isn't a great reason to love them, really. The stats aren't too great, the move pools are only okay, and for the designs, well, let's just say that it wouldn't take way too long to think of a big bird with electricity, one with fire, and just one that's cold. Even with all that in mind though, I have to say that Zapdos makes this list for sure. Zapdos may not be very special in design, but in the game he always held a special place for me. Zapdos is one of those Pokemon that I would always use for one reason or another, and by always, I meant always, be it competitive teams, playing through the game, or just playing around in my old copy of Leaf Dream. Whatever it was, I kept a Zapdos around. It was strong, quick enough, and it could tank the way I built the guy. It was used in my first competitive team, and it always held its own in battle. I love it for the simple design, and all the time that I really spent with this guy. Number 3. So Vespiquen is one of those Pokemon that I came to love pretty much just because of the Maryland playthrough of Platinum. I mean, it seems so powerful in his hands, and little me awed in wonder at the Queen of Bees doing the work over all other types of creatures. The design of her is just so unique. I mean, it's essentially a beehive and queen bee all in one, and I feel like Nintendo really pulled this off. Now with this in mind, I need to mention how back then I never actually got myself a Vespiquen, even though I did love it so much. Essentially, it boils down to the fact that I didn't really pay way too much attention to gender in that game at all. But to the beginnings, if you've ever played that game and gone for one of these things, you will really find how hard it can be to get. You need to use honey and all that stuff, along with finding a female. Fortunately for me as a young guy, I did indeed find honey, and I knew how to use it, but I never found a female Combee. So I thought to myself, maybe a male will do. I don't really know why. Unfortunately, that's not really how Pokemon work. Even so, I chugged along leveling my male Combee until level 70, where I finally gave up the dream of a Vespiquen. For some reason, I never went back to get a female. I just thought that the game was broken or something, so I ended up my adventure with this hugely overleveled Combee, and of course the dreams of one day getting that Vespiquen, which of course never really came to pass. Number 2. Azumarill has always been a favorite of mine, even before the fairy type made its debut and made this thing OU. You would have known this if you saw my Pokemon White 2 Wedlocke on my channel about 2 years ago. I mean, those videos did only get about 20 views though, so I wonder if anybody even knows I made them, but maybe you saw that. Now I swear that there is a good reason to put this guy on my list. I know many people that hate this thing lately, but it's held onto my heart for the longest time. The big reason why I love and have loved this thing is just first, its cuteness overall, and in the evolution chain, yes, even that depressed Azumarill, and the ability huge power. If you know me, I'm a real sucker for power, and with an ability such as this, well, it's just a great fit. Essentially what it does is double the attack stat. That's it, but oh, how that double stat really makes a difference. It makes this cute Peekaboo become a murderer of the masses. The stat total becomes giant, and the versatility in its move pool adds up to a mess of pain. It can one-shot many different Pokemon, and it's just great as a sweeper or somebody who can quickly finish off other people and then switch out. It's always been useful to me and given me some of that moral support with the cuteness, along with that extra push of power on my teams. Number 1. Finally, for number 1, we got Haxorus. Now this thing is just the word epic. That's all I can really say for it. It's the manifestation of power in Pokemon and what a real dragon seems to me. It gives the feeling of sheer power and overwhelmingness that no other Pokemon has in my eyes. The colors are perfect, and the sharpness around its head really gives me an impression of how easily it could finish off anything I put it up against. Of course, as far as stats actually go, it also follows that powerful trend. It has one of the highest attack stats in the entire game, along with the ability to learn moves such as Swords Dance and Dragon Dance to increase that attack to an unfathomable number. Back in Black, I used this thing to sweep every Elite Four member over and over and over again with that Swords Dance that I mentioned, and really Haxorus never let me down. Sure, it is a bit slow and has some problems getting set up safely, but overall it's just one huge hunk of power to be added to my team, and if I could have a Pokemon in real life, I would want Haxorus for sure. And there you have it, my top 10 favorite Pokemon of all time. I'm sorry this video took forever to come out after I asked people if they wanted a Pokemon video, but I hope that it was not a letdown. Took a lot of time to edit compared to my usual videos, but I hope that you really appreciated that. I know the Pokemon videos probably won't do as well as Smash videos on my channel for a while, but still, thanks for any support that you do give. Make sure to leave a like and tell me if you enjoyed the video, and comment down below what you really think of my list and who you personally love. Thanks for all your time, and I'll be seeing you all next time.